welcome to StudioZ, a podcast of empowerment. I'm your host, Melissa Marvel.
Welcome to our podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Tom Mabe join me as co-host. And also, as a guest with us, we have David Allgood with the Center for Accessible Living. Hi, David.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Hi.
Very well, thank you. How are you all?
Great.
I'm good.
He's doing great. He's really helped me with.
I'm a tad nervous, David Allgood. I will tell you that right now because we don't know what. This is your second? This is your first?
Technically, this is my first.
Okay. Your first day.
The first day with StudioZ. So bear with us as we go through this. But David, we are thrilled to have you and excited to again share the mission and purpose of what StudioZ is, and that's to be an advocate, an educator, an environment for individuals to help them find their journey and their pathway to their needs. So without further ado, David, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your personal journey. And also, everyone, David Allgood is the Director of Advocacy for the Center for Accessible Living. So, David, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm a native Louisvillian, born and raised here. In 1982, when I was 16, some friends and I were horsing around in the backyard pool, and we used a deflated raft like a slingshot, and I threw some people in, and it was, excuse me. Excuse me.
As long as you're okay, you'll have all the excuses you need.
Wow. I apologize about that. So it was my turn to try to go over this. I apologize about this.
Guess what? We can edit. It's all good.
Yeah, we can edit. Well, yeah.
we can clear your throat as much as you need to.
That is crazy. So when it was my turn to be flung into the pool, my chin at the bottom of the pool, and I sustained a C5 cervical injury to my spinal column, and that instantly paralyzed me. So I went from being running track and playing football at St. X to being a person who was going to need a wheelchair to ambulate for the rest of my life. So I was fortunate enough to have great family and friends and held a support system. And so I was able to finish out my junior and senior year at St. X and went up to the University of Kentucky. And at that time, the University of Kentucky was the only college that had a attendant care program that could assist individuals like myself who needed basic care activities of daily living every day, every night. And so, as at St. X, I was one of the only one person with a visible disability, 1,400 boys or males. And then I went to the University of Kentucky, and I'm living in a dorm with about 7 other people with spinal cord injuries and other disabilities. So it was kind of an epiphany for me to be around other individuals with disabilities that were similar to mine. I learned so much from those individuals and how to accomplish and do things and, tie a string to a doorknob and put your hand in it and hit your wheelchair and go full speed and you can close your door. You get an oversized key ring on your key and you can be able to twist it when you don't have good finger dexterity. So just I learned an immense amount by being around my peers with disabilities and
being creative.
Really, absolutely. And I have to admit I was more dependent on my family, to say the least, when I was right after my injury, and they were very protective and, again, very helpful. But just being up there on your own, having to figure out things on your own was very enlightening and very helpful to me. So that's where I really got into advocacy as well at the University of Kentucky. They built a brand new baseball stadium and had no accessible seats whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
And we tried a meeting with the athletic director, and this was before the ADA. And I knew that there was federal laws that for institutions of higher learning that received federal funding, they had to be accessible. And we couldn't get a meeting with the athletic director, and then I learned out the power of the media when we went my another friend and a wheelchair user. We were on the front cover of the Kentucky Colonel, which is the newspaper at the University of Kentucky, and it said, "Why can't they get in?" And the next day, we got an appointment with the assistant athletic director.
That was social media back in the day, huh?
Right.
That was it.
And how long did it take before they made it accessible and put, whatever it was that you needed to, to enjoy a game?
They spent close to, I think, about $180,000 to make and it was probably I don't know, honestly, I don't remember if it was the next season or if it was the beginning of the other season and they finished it before we did go to the accessible seating that they created that was almost like a dugout for us with the netting over it and everything for anyone who had a mobility impairment. They could view the game safely from that thing. But, that's where I really found out that there was power. I had federal law backing me. Again, it was before the ADA. So then I left. Well, actually, we helped when I was at the University of Kentucky as well. Rupp Arena only had two platforms for wheelchair accessible seating. So you had about, I don't know, a couple hundred students, not all of them with mobility impairments, but we were crammed like sardines into this one spot, and we tried to advocate on behalf of all of us who had mobility impairments to open up the other end. And, well, we finally did. Right after I graduated, they opened up the other end to make it for more wheelchair accessible seating. And I was fortunate enough to be able then to become a regular season ticket holder at UCAN games and still have the tickets today. So advocacy can pay off in a lot of ways.
I got a question. You kept, and I pardon my naivete. I'm just my ignorance when it comes to this. I think it's fascinating. But you keep twice now. You said that was before the ADA. Is that what you said?
I did. The Americans with Disability Act, which is
David,
sorry.
I'm very guilty of this. I have to keep reminding myself when I hear an acronym. Or yes, we need to explain it. So the ADA. So yes, it's been around just what, over 30 years?
Yeah, the 30th anniversary in July of this year with basically the Civil Rights Act for people with disabilities, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So yes, that's a big federal law that ensures inclusion for people with disabilities in employment, access, communication. It's basically the federal law that allows us to be a part of society in every way possible that every non-disabled individual does. So that is our Civil Rights Act for people with disabilities.
That's great.
I'm so thrilled to hear that you are a season ticket holder, because I was thinking after all that work, you should be a season ticket holder. But
well, I guess fortunate enough to be able to do it.
Yes. Well, my question is once you learned how powerful your voice can be with, the backing of the ADA, but how did that move you forward?
Well, once I got back to Louisville I got graduated with a master's degree, spent a little bit of time in law school, didn't like that, got a master's degree, came back to Louisville, and then again, prior to ADA, tried to find some employment. And I think there was subtle discrimination on their part because someone with a pretty severe disability, being a quadriplegic, using a power wheelchair, I think they were afraid about their insurance costs going up if they hired me. So it was kind of just getting frustrated, but I started volunteering at the Center for Accessible Living. And that turned into a eventual part-time job and eventual full-time job. But it was there that I really learned right after the ADA was passed, really how empowered we had just become in federal protections against discrimination in employment, in access, in communications, transportation, all those areas that everyone else takes for granted all their life. Those don't have a disability. It took us until 1990 to really become a protected class of citizens. So, and before that, you could discriminate us in any way you wanted to. But with the Center for Accessible Living being a disability resource center, that's what disability resource centers do. They empower individuals to become more effective advocates for themselves or provide information about the services if they don't provide those services directly. How someone with a disability can access community living, community options. We want to be inclusive opportunities for the disability community throughout the United States, and every state has at least one disability resource center or center for independent living in all the territories as well. So some states have multiple, like we have 4 here in Kentucky. So, being around the Center for Accessible Living really gave me a whole different view, particularly after the ADA was passed, of what really was obtainable for those of us living with disabilities.
So when you've talked or you've spoken about your hurdle to kind of find your first job or your volunteer that converted into your first employment with the center, what were your challenges that you faced that others might face and have similar experiences with, and how with the ADA and the new laws, protecting the individuals, what are the benefits that we have today that we might not have had then?
Well, again, before the ADA, you could go apply for a job and have a visible disability, and they could just say that, no, we're not hiring right now. We don't, or they could literally say that, I'm afraid my insurance might go up, and we don't want to really employ you at this point in time. So after the ADA, they can only ask you certain questions about employment. They can ask if you can perform the essential job functions. And if you can, and they can ask if you might need a reasonable accommodation. They can ask you about your disability, how it may impact your ability to do the job. As long as they can make some reasonable accommodations for you to perform the essential job functions, then they have to try to go through with that. Again, there's always some gray area where they might be able to get around, but there's more opportunity, and if you think that you have been discriminated against, then you have the option to file a complaint with the Office of Civil. I'm trying to just blank on the name. OCC. Anyway, there's a federal agency that deals with employment.
I'll do the homework after this recording.
So that there's now some protections against overt or subtle discrimination if you're a person with a disability trying to find employment. So, but I experienced quite a bit of that before the ADA when I was trying to find employment. Then, I just fell into a wonderful position at the Center for Accessible Living because 51% of employees at Centers for Independent Living have to be someone with a disability, and 51% of our board has to be someone with a disability. So it's a very inclusive, welcoming environment for those of us with disabilities. And I just, learned and fostered and started really getting more confident in what I could do in my advocacy abilities, and going up to Frankfurt and testifying.
Real quick,
go ahead,
David. I want to ask you a lot about your work in Frankfurt, but real quick, you said something that intrigued me about the Center for Accessible Living. You said that it needed to maintain a 51% individuals with disabilities in the workforce
and the board.
No.
I want to make sure I heard this correctly.
Yes, every Center for Independent Living or Disability Resource Center in the United States by law, has to be composed of 51% of its employees have to have a disability, and 51% of its board members have to have a disability to be. It's just about inclusion and people knowing what's going on. And again, basically the walk the walk and talk the talk. You're around individuals who experienced similar situations or may be able to.
So that's intertwined then with your articles and your bylaws on how the organization is to be maintained and run.
Correct. Exactly.
Excellent. Okay, it's interwoven to the fabric. That's awesome. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. So
yep.
Thank you. And then as I interrupted again, I know that you and I had the pleasure of meeting as we both went to Frankfurt, and you with much more experience, but we met in Frankfurt as we were trying to be advocates for individuals with disabilities. And so I'd just like for you to share more about, the experience that you've had with our legislators and your workings in Frankfurt.
I was, again, I was involved. I always liked politics. I was involved in student government with the Senator, Arts and Science Center in the UK, and then became involved at the center. And then we started, this was like 95 perhaps, and we were trying to get increased funding for the Personal Care Attendant Program, which is a general fund program in Kentucky that provides assistance for people who are trying to live in the community. They get a very small stipend to help pay for attendant care. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to get an increase in the funding because it was, in the day, is woefully underfunded, the hourly rate that you can pay somebody. But they asked if I would testify before a committee. I think it was 96, and I was a little intimidated because I had never done that in the state government. I've done it at UK on a few issues, but then I went up to there, and really basically being an effective advocate is basically sharing your life story. It's, it can be a little intimidating because you think you're in front of legislators, but believe me, some of those legislators are easy to get along with, don't know exactly a lot of times what the issue is about, because they have a ton of bills that they have to become knowledgeable about.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I shared my life story and how attendant care has helped me, and how it's helped me, become more independent and not rely on other individuals. And basically, all I did was tell my story, and it was really totally easy. And after that, I had no problem testifying. And a lot of legislators come up to you afterward and thank you for your sharing the information. And it's really not that difficult to do. I mean, you might be intimidated, but once you get used to it, it's really not that difficult.
So if you were to come in contact with a family that had, a disability concern or an issue that they wanted to bring up with our state government and our legislators, how would they go about doing that? Would they reach out to someone such as yourself, or what other options do just the general public that would have that kind of question? What would they do?
They could reach out to me as Director of Advocacy at the Center for Accessible Living. And another good, unique thing about Centers for Independent Living is they're a cross-disability organization. We serve all types of disabilities. It doesn't matter. We're not specifically Alzheimer's or brain injury or intellectual or developmental disabilities. We're all disabilities. So it's one of the unique aspects of a cross-disability. But you're more than welcome to call the center if you have some advocacy issues or concerns. But a lot of times, like I say, if you do have brain injury, you might try the Brain Injury Association of Kentucky. A lot of times peers or people that have experienced similar situations are really knowledgeable about that.
Mm-hmm.
And they already have some advocates that are working on them. Some of them have lobbyists. And well, we'll stress that I'm an advocate, not a lobbyist, because you do have to register if you're a lobbyist to be in Frankfort. And we just go to educate our elected officials about issues that are important in our life. But yeah, and then a lot of times individuals become their own best advocates. Again, contact your state representative or your state senator, tell them the issues that you're having, whether it be with the Medicaid, transportation, it could be anything. And a lot of times legislators are concerned that their constituents might have issues that are negatively impacting them, and they might be proactive and try to assist you. And a lot of times they will contact you with a state agency or local agency that could be beneficial in you resolving the matter. And sometimes they might even welcome you to the Capitol to testify before a committee that oversees that issue that you're having concern with.
It sounds like you are saying that from experience.
Pardon me?
It sounds as if you're explaining that to us from experience.
Yes, I mean, I'm probably the only person with a visible disability that's in Frankfort every day, almost every day, during the General Assembly, trying to effectively communicate with our elected officials. And, it's really important, I think, that legislators see you or hear from you, and you don't have to go to Frankfort if you live in one end of the state or the other. Those legislators, and again, before COVID times,
mm-hmm.
a lot of times would have town hall meetings, for lack of a better word, or coffee during the Saturday morning, and you can go talk to your legislators, and it's really effective to do that. And I've had legislators call me on my cell phone to say, hey, what do you think about this bill? And I would give them my honest opinion and let them know what I thought. And so, I mean, you become a trusted source, because, again, legislators can see up to 12 to 1,500 bills in a 3-month session, so they're not going to be able to be knowledgeable, and they look for people who can be trusted experts on situations. So, again, if you don't know, I always say share this too. If you don't know something and the legislator asks you a question and you don't know it, don't make something up you think they want to hear. Just let them tell them, I'll get back with you. Let me get that information, and make sure that you don't ever make something up, because you could make them look pretty bad if they went on the floor and testified about something like that. So if you don't know it, just tell them you don't know it, but you will get the information and get back to them.
I appreciate that. Any 3 pointers that you might want to give to the audience? Any, I guess, hurdles or barriers or anything that you think is important that we need to be taking some educational components to Frankfurt with right now, or any type of hurdles that we can work with the community to maybe make some positive change?
Well, well, again, I guess it's just my background and where I work. But community-based services are so more better quality of life when we can put community-based services to practice. To save the state of Kentucky a tremendous amount of money. I think, like I said, the personal care attendant program maybe averages about $16,000 a year, where someone in a nursing home is $45,000 to $68,000 a year, and an institution can be up to $200,000 for a year for one person.
Wow!
So community-based services are much better quality of life with a much more effective way to make our tax dollars work more efficiently for all of Kentucky. And it's a better, again, let's go back, it's a better quality of life. But it can be very expensive to keep someone in institutional settings versus the community. And let people with non-disabled see that people with disabilities can function and, work just like everyone else. They may do things a little bit differently. But, in the end, we're not looking for special treatment. We're just looking for equal treatment. And a lot of times it's taken for granted, I think, by non-disabled people that we can't do this. Like saying, I drive my own van. I'm a quadriplegic and don't have full use of my hands, but I drive my own vehicle since 1990. So
I just have to say that I am extremely impressed that you can do that, because I have been to the outfitter company that is, it's escaping me at the moment, but the modifications that they can make to the vehicles so that people can, it is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So
Superior Van Conversion does a ton of conversions. I've seen people, they can change the gas to the other side. They can drive with a joystick just like a wheelchair. Pretty impressive what they can do to fabricate it. So I've been very fortunate to be able to actually get ready to get my fourth van in my driving career since my accident. So, but again, that's just, I like community-based services, saving taxpayers money. We're looking at, right now, a lot of people probably don't know this, but in the state of Kentucky right now, if you have a disability and you're a parent, you can have your parental rights terminated just with the fact that you have a disability.
Oh, my word.
You don't have to be abusive. You don't have to be neglectful. Just because you have a disability, they can take your parental rights away, because a lot of times people in the field don't think that people with disabilities can be parents, and they literally can take the child away from them. So we formed a coalition of different advocacy groups across the state to address this, and we're going to look at this session. I don't think it's going to
Is this all states, or is this just Kentucky, or?
No, I think we're down to maybe like 20 to 25 that can still do this. And South Carolina just passed a bill last year that corrected that, because that was true in South Carolina, and they passed it in 1 year, which was amazing. But that's still the case in Kentucky. Just merely on the fact that you have a disability, your parental rights can be terminated. And we're wanting to work with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services to give their employed the workers that go out in the field some better disability sensitivity and awareness training, but also get this bill changed and get a bill introduced that will do it.
Do you think there's a limit on that? Like I went to school with a girl who both her parents were deaf. Is that considered a disability? Is there certain levels, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I'll tell you what, the law really focuses on intellectual and developmental disabilities. I think it's going for the IQ. But if you interpret it broadly enough, and I think that it has been done rather broadly, it can apply to any disability. So we think that's a travesty, and we are going to work to rectify that problem through legislation. But it will probably have to be next year because of the short session, and it's a budget year again. But we're going to look into that. And then, of course, one of my pet peeves as a person who drives a vehicle is accessible parking. And I can't tell you the number of times that people park in the striped lines that's a designated access aisle for me to get my ramp out and then my wheelchair out, which takes me about 4 or 5 feet. And people park in the striped line all the time. And I'll come out of the mall and I'm ready to go. And somebody's parked and I'm trapped. So I either have to wait until they decide to come out, or I have to get someone who's ambulatory to move my vehicle standing up with no driver's seat, using the gas and the brake. And it's not, it's not an easy feeling seeing a $60,000 van backed out with someone that could hit the gas or the brake because they're standing up. So
I think, David, I think there needs to be a PSA for that. I've never parked in there, but I never knew what it was for.
Oh, really?
I thought maybe it was for a fire truck or something. I had no idea that. I mean, it makes perfect sense. But wow.
We're working on that. The law was passed recently here in Jefferson County. I didn't even know this. That 96-inch access aisle, the larger striped line, is for vans like myself, side loading vehicles, and it's not against the law to park in it in Jefferson County.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that. This summer, ordinance was introduced and passed, and now it is law, and a police officer can get someone who parks in that striped line. But we are working on trying to get more education about that striped thing. But it's a pet peeve of mine, because I can't tell you the number of times that I just wanted to go and get in my van and go home, but I'm stuck there, and in the mall in St. Matthews. It just happened this summer to my wife and me, and someone parked in the striped line, and we tried to get them to come, mall security, and they were watching us on the cameras the whole time, and said they couldn't do it because it's on private property and the vehicle and this, that, and the other. And it was like, I can't believe you're not going to do that. So then my wife said to put it in neutral, and one of the security guards pushed the car back, and then a couple other people helped push it back. But, that law has now changed, and you can be fined, I guess it could be $100 to $250 now for parking in the striped line. So hopefully that will be more cognizant of that. And we were approaching a local TV station to do a story, but then COVID and some other things in Washington took precedence. So we're still trying to work on that. Well, I wish you good luck with that, because I would have never thought in a zillion years, though, that someone would actually park in it.
All the time.
Because it's marked off. I hate to hear that, because Zoom group, we have multiple wheelchair accessible, and they have the side entry. So I know exactly what you're referring to and how frustrating that could be. So I hope that you have great success in getting the I guess it's the laws changed regarding penalties and fines, and then just overall education and the signage. Maybe the signage could be improved, because I know that.
I think a simple sign with an icon and with the van with the ramp on the side, just like they have the icon of the person with the
You've probably already thought of that, right, David?
We thought of a number of things, like maybe even putting a pole right in the middle of the parking spot, the access aisle, that says that would prevent any vehicle to be able to then the property owners say that snow removal and everything. So I'm like, snow removal, so you're going to pile all the snow in the access aisle anyway. But they always have some excuses that they come up with. But hopefully now that this law has been passed in Jefferson County, and it also is valid, it's already passed in Lexington about parking in the access aisle. But the rest of Kentucky, you can park in the access aisle and not have any problems. So we're going to try to work on a state bill. We've got another group of advocates. All of us are wheelchair users, and we drive our vehicles. So we're working on trying to get that matter resolved as well. So there's never a lack of initiatives that we can be working on. And like I say, it's my life story. When I go to Frankfurt and tell them that, I had to, had someone drive back my vehicle up, or I went to the state fair one year, and it's a story I tell every time, and I had to pick up 2 spots because every accessible spot at the state fair is always taken up. And so I took up 2 spots way in the very back, and someone keyed the side of my van because they thought I was being a jerk to try to take a 2 spot.
My goodness.
Wow.
So that trip to the fair cost me $500. But so it's just sharing your life experiences, and a lot of the legislators. I've gotten about 2 or 3 different parking bills passed, and still working on it. But the legislators come to me and say, I did not know about that, and I'm sorry that happened.
Well, your life's work is very helpful for many, so that is
absolutely.
Congratulations for all those efforts. We could continue this conversation, and maybe we will someday on another podcast. But in getting close to closing here, David, is there anything that you would like to share about services that the center specifically could, individuals that might be listening would want to contact the center for assistance, for instance, excuse my lisp there? The social security benefits or other issues?
Sure. I mean, one good thing about the center, everything we offer is free, no charge whatsoever to you, except for our American Sign Language interpreters, and some accessibility surveys. But I do advocacy. If you need advocacy issues, we can try to help you with that if you call us. We have a housing program that tries to assist individuals on Section 8 vouchers, get affordable, accessible housing. She will guide you through the process. She's amazing and done it for years. It's our number one requested service is the housing. We administer the personal care attendant program for the state of Kentucky and Louisville. We have an interpreter program if you need an American Sign Language interpreter, which you are required to have. You're supposed to have effective communication. So if you have a deaf customer or a friend or whatever that tries to get services somewhere, particularly with doctor's office or visits, they have to be afforded a licensed or certified American Sign Language interpreter. And we have those on staff. We have a ramp builders program. If you live in Jefferson County and you meet certain requirements for the program, you can get a ramp built for your house for free if it will give you safe exit and entry from your house. It might be a year and a half wait, but we do have the program. You can get on the waiting list. We have a program where if you want to go back to work and you're concerned about your benefits, Medicaid and Medicare, Social Security, like I was when I first started working and didn't want to impact my benefits. Mm-hmm. We have a free service that will tell you what you can and can't do, what you can make, what you need to keep for your records, and they can do that over the phone or meet with you, social distancing wise, and that's a free. So we have a lot of different services, mm-hmm. and a lot of our services are information referral. If we don't have the service directly that we administer, then we'll direct you to the local, state, or federal agency that can best help you with what you're trying to look for. So we're basically an information referral service for people with disabilities. And like I say, everything is free. It doesn't cost you a dime to contact us.
Well, I thank you for sharing that about the Center for Accessible Living, and I thank you for joining the show. I thank Tom for
Yeah, thanks for letting me sit in. This is very, very interesting and amazing.
And you know,
thank you all.
Yes. Thank you, David. I was going to say, and it's one of those things that nonprofit organizations, the Center for Accessible Living, Zoom Group, we all are part of a larger network of individuals that need differing types of supports. And so having these kind of conversations and bringing this information to the table is very helpful, I hope, for the community. So again, thank you for participating. Thank you for being on the call. Thank you for sharing your story. And, if anybody needs to have any questions about what David spoke of today, feel free to reach out to the center or to Zoom Group. And so we thank you very much. And David, you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all. You did the same. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks, David. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. To see upcoming guests, check us out at StudioZ.space.